Hey, this is Professor Homa. Welcome to EX07 Surgeries. We're going to work with some surgical data to create a spreadsheet and to make some charts from that data. And it's kind of semi-fictional data that we have here, but it is for a real-world hospital and some real-world surgeons. However, some of the data is kind of made up a little bit. One of the things I wanted to show you here is kind of a finished version. Because with this exercise, you're going to have to create it yourself, and you're going to have to create the spreadsheet, and you're going to have to create the charts. But I did want to kind of show you what you're going to end up with. Now, here's basically this thing here is the spreadsheet. You know, there's charts kind of floating around here, but the spreadsheet here is what you're going to be creating. So you could color this any way you want, you know, and you could lay it out any way you want as far as the font and what you make bold and things like that. But what you are going to do, first of all, let me just show you here. This is the data that I'm giving you in B4 through E9. That's the data that I'm giving you on your instructions. And you're going to have to figure out the other data, which isn't that hard. There's totals down here, which you're going to auto-sum. We already know how to do that. So you're going to auto-sum totals. These totals here you're going to have to come up with. And these are just going to be totaling up the columns to the left of it. So basically the surgeries is just going to total up this cell and that cell. So if I clicked on here and I looked up here at the formula, you could see it's B4 plus D4, which is B4 plus D4. And it's just adding them up, and then when I stretch it down, it should use the neighboring cells to do that. So that's not that hard. And then also the complications does the same thing. This one adds up C4 and E4. And then it gets your total complications. So then you're going to get all your totals, and obviously you're going to total up the ones at the bottom here as well. Now the only other thing you're going to have to do here is, on this last H column here, is figure out a percentage. And a percentage is just, you know, dividing, just like we did for the grade sheet. And what we're going to figure out here is a rate of complication. So how many total complications they had per surgery, we want to hope they have a low percentage is going to be a better percentage for that. So we're going to figure out a rate of complication, and you can see just by looking at this one here for Holland, who had total surgeries of 236 and 7 complications. Obviously he is the most experienced surgeon, at least out of these 2 years, and he had 7 complications in 236 surgeries. Now complications just means, you know, there was some complication afterwards. Doesn't mean anybody died or there was something that, you know, there was a mistake made. It just means there's complications, which there always is. Anyway, this percent was 3%, so 7 out of 36. So you can see the formula here is G4, which is the complications divided by E4, which is the surgeries. So that's how we get that rate of complication, and we're going to use percentages for that. And then down here, it's also going to be using the neighboring columns for that. Now, out of all this data we have here, what we're going to do is make some charts from it. And what I recommend from charts is actually making simple charts. So if you need data from charts, instead of trying to make a chart that, you know, incorporates all this, try to make simple charts. If you want to just chart the total surgeries, make a chart for total surgeries, and that way, you know, you just need the surgeons and you need the total surgeries, and it's basically, you know, 2 columns that you're generating a chart for. So, you know, I always recommend just making multiple simple charts rather than, you know, one big complicated chart. And you're going to make 3 charts: one for total surgeries, one for total surgeries and complications, which just means that you're going to highlight, you know, the surgeons and the surgeries and complications when you go to make your column chart, and it's actually going to put them in what's called a clustered column. You're going to have a red and a blue, or whatever color you use, but it's going to show you 2 columns, and you're going to have a legend. Now, just to review with charts again, remember here's the chart title, which when you're working with charts, that would be under layout. So that's up here, that's chart title. This is your chart title. Remember, you could double click in here and change that. Down here is your horizontal axis, which is under axis titles, horizontal, and we usually put it below everything. And over here is your vertical axis, and I usually like to do the rotate it. If you do vertical, it stacks letters on top of each other, which are harder to read. The only other thing to take note here is data labels. This has data labels. Whenever you put the values on the chart, those are data labels. So that's up here, data labels. This one up here if you see, that has data labels inside. So when I did this, I did data labels and I did inside end. And again, after you're done, if you want to color them, you could just click on one, or just when you first click, it should click on all these numbers, and that's how I made it white. If I wanted to make it bold, I could right click here and just click on the B button, and it'll make these numbers bold. And again, you can use themes for this as well. So again, chart title, axis titles over here, and these are data labels which appear here and which appear here. Those are your data labels. And down here, I didn't use a vertical axis because I have a legend that showed up here, and I'll show you to do that when we actually work on the chart. But since there's a legend showing these are surgeries and these are complications, we don't necessarily have to put a title over here, because it's actually two things. If you did, you'd put surgery / complications, but this takes care of that, so we don't need a vertical axis. So that's kind of starting out here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start this from scratch, meaning I'm going to start a new file, and just to get you started with putting the values in there. So let me stop and let me get a new file started.